Welcome back to another episode of Investing Explained. Here's today's question.
Fantastic question, by the way. I really like this question, but I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, I concur, Press. I think it's a great question, and I don't think it has a simple answer because you could take it many different ways. But I'd say if you want to get in the weeds on the micro components of fundamental valuation or stock selection, unfortunately, you got to go to the dig in the well and stick to things like security analysis, intelligent investor. Even though I know they're seem like they're two old books and they're for old guys, but I think that's just a great baseline fundamental framework for figuring out how to value a stock, like the classic methods. Now, once you move beyond kind of the micro on valuation, if you Google around, there's probably 100 resources. I know Preston Stig, they have a great, course on their website. Khan Academy almost certainly has great resources. And there's this good old thing called Google. I think a lot of times Googling around, the machines have kind of optimized on, if you answer the right question with enough detail, a lot of times the best resources will bubble to the top. And I'd stick to that because it's free. Probably a good place to start.
So I completely agree with Wes on the security analysis, Benjamin Graham, all that kind of stuff is really good for the micro level. I think for a person who's coming into this fairly new, security analysis is probably going to be a little difficult to go through, depending on if you've had business classes or what, like how much accounting experience you have might make it difficult.
You need to get accounting. And here's the other thing. If you're coming in new to investing, I mean, frankly, it probably means you're not going to be like a stock picker. Like that means you're becoming a professional. So if you're coming in new, it's really about more high level frameworks. Like we have the facts framework, like know the fees, know your liquidity, know the complexity, the taxes, because you're probably going to end up just buying a Vanguard fund anyways. It's, so really, if you're going to get into the micro weeds, the reality is it's painful and it requires you to basically read that kind of stuff
a lot.
So it just is what it is. So if you don't want to be a professional or someone who's like dedicates their life to the trade, and you're really just kind of someone who wants to learn about investing and how you're going to allocate your portfolio down the road, you may not even want to go into that level of detail because it's just going to make your head spin and it's not going to be worth it. And that's what I was saying. Just probably.
I'm curious about this, Wes, and I know I'm changing gears away from the question, but we were talking with Shane Parrish, and I asked Shane if he had the choice between the intelligent investor or margin of safety. If he had to pick one or the other, which one would he pick?
Yeah.
And he said margin of safety, and I tend to agree with him. I'm kind of curious if you enjoyed that book as much as we liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but the problem is to buy that book's like $1,000. That one's more like the access, but. Yeah, Seth Klarman's much better at, I think, exposition and kind of storyboarding it where it's more tangible, where Intelligent Investor is boring as hell, frankly. But, it's like eating your Brussels sprouts. Sometimes the things that are good for you aren't exactly easy or fun, but they're still good for you. So I'm a big fan of it. But you're right, margin safety is also a great resource to the extent you can access the manuscript somehow.
I guess for me, when it comes to micro, I mean, obviously you can have and find books that's very quantitative and you have a lot of key ratios to look at and a lot of accounting to look at. One of the most recent books that we read was called How the Mighty Fall by Jim Collins, which is, I wouldn't say it's the complete opposite of what you suggested, Wes. There are a few key ratios in there, but it's a very different approach to understanding why companies fail, which is, at least in my opinion, one of the best approaches to understand, on the flip side, why companies are successful and why you want to invest in them. And not only in terms of making the acquisition of the stock, but also to follow the progress and not just look at the numbers, but also look what's behind the numbers and perhaps considering when you should sell.
To answer his question about macro, I had I think that one of the most profound reads that I've ever had on macro came off of Ray Dalio's website. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, but Ray lays out his principles for basically macro and the way that he thinks about it. And a lot of it is based off of the video that I'm sure most people know about by now. There's a 30-minute video that he has on YouTube about like how the economic machine works. I would highly recommend you watch that. We'll put the video into the show notes as well. But the PDF that goes along with that, I want to say it's like a 250-page white paper on his opinion on how macro works and how it all fits together. That is hands down the best thing that I've ever read on macro that's out there. And we'll have that all for free in the show notes if you guys want to check that out as well. So
I'll second that motion because I agree that's I mean, that guy's obviously a genius, and you should probably read whatever he writes.
yeah.
And that the economic machine piece is amazing.
Yeah.
That's it. Preston and I will continue explaining investing, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button.